Okay, you have been warned. I'm very much looking forward to this panel session. So, YIQIYe, the floor is yours.
Okay, thanks. I mean, we've got 4 great speakers here. I think the way we've arranged it is for Robert, I mean, I gave him a plug, but really to tee it up from how he sees it from a different lens, a government lens. And then we have Winston, who then will share with us how he sees things from a strategic point of view. And then we move on to where the rubber hits the road, whereby there are actually 2 initiatives, a platform initiative, and so Charlie with his own company, and see how he experiences this situation. Without wasting many more time, let's go straight to Robert and let's get the ball rolling. Robert, over to you.
Thank you, YIQIYe. Firstly, I've got a set of slides, and I promise to keep it short because I think at the end of the day, you're not here to look at slides, but you're really here to listen to the panelists. So could I have the next slide, please? It was actually quite fun looking back at that video. Winston, I will make fun of you later for the color of the lip gloss. But I think it was interesting to note that that was done in November last year as part of the FinTech Festival. And so it's really pre-COVID, but the messages are timeless. And in fact, they're being accelerated. It's without doubt that the COVID situation has been challenging for many, if not most businesses. Existing customers, supply chains, and business models have been tested to the limit. Many have had to change, some permanently. The truth is change is scary, but change is also opportunity. Without change, there really is no opportunity for growth or invention. But what is clear is that digital has become central to both dealing with the challenges as well as taking advantage of the opportunities. Dealing with the challenges first, digitalization of businesses is really vital for the survival and future relevance. We caught the last bit of the panel before, and they were actually talking about it being really a no choice, no brainer. Companies that adopt digital processes really need to adopt them from an end-to-end perspective. You're not going to get the full benefits if you just have token digitalization. And it's going beyond an efficiency exercise. And I think that's one of the things we'll probably talk about later during this panel, which is that it is no longer about efficiency, it's now resilience, but it's also the foundation for agility. It allows the businesses to adapt, whether it is to the current situation or the unknown situations moving forward. So those digital adoptions are not just improved now, but they're actually the groundwork for the future. And that's again why it was interesting to look at that video just now, because that was groundwork that was being done in supply chain last year, before COVID was even discussed. The opportunities take different forms. There's a rebalancing of supply chains. There's a focus of resilience over just pure efficiency. I think it's quite clear that companies are looking to make sure that their partners are resilient. It goes beyond just customers, because if you can't solve your supply chains, you can't supply your customers. There are new models of consumption from customers. So customers are changing their profiles and their interactions with businesses. And this can give rise to a new revenue stream, a digital revenue stream. It doesn't have to be the only revenue stream, but if you do not have one to complement your existing structures, then you are actually at risk. And I think many companies who went into this situation with a purely physical revenue stream realized that they quickly needed a digital one, and those digital revenue streams are actually complementing, in some cases, surpassing their physical revenue streams. I had the pleasure of being on a panel a couple of weeks ago with Alvin Chua from SG5. He's in the beer distribution business, and clearly that is a sector that has been impacted by safe distancing measures. Finding new customers undoubtedly must be challenging, but the pivot he made to digital solutions on or around the period when COVID came in actually meant that for his existing customers, he was able to improve his collections during this period as customers move towards digital payments. So there are things that can be done. Next slide, please. So how are we helping? IMDA is there primarily as a technology agency, but we're there to help. We're partnering with other agencies. We're not doing this alone. It's a multi-pronged effort to lay the digital groundwork. We're looking at broad-based digital solutions for businesses through programs, introducing digital infrastructure. Examples of this are SME Start Digital, e-invoicing, e-payment initiatives, and the Hawker Go Digital initiative. We're helping companies enhance their resilience. And this is, again, efficiency, but also lets companies expand into new areas. Programs in this space include Digital Resilience Bonus, together with initiatives like Trade Trust. They benefit companies who adopt them, but in turn, they allow those companies to give those companies the potential to be part of the resilience strategy of their partners. This is not something that those companies can just do on their own. Finally, there's growth. Businesses can leverage on digital marketplaces to find opportunities, both local and overseas. Connecting marketplaces, which was a theme in the video earlier, and I think a theme for today, will allow new discoveries of customers, both and services across different countries. And initiatives in this area include SME Grow Digital and Business Sans Border, as well as the digital economic agreements, which we are entering into with other governments. Next slide, please. One of the challenges with safe distancing is that it really has made many of us feel isolated. I speak for myself in that capacity. We are having virtual meetings instead of physical meetings, but when it comes to digital, you're not alone. Firstly, it's always important to recognize that these challenges are not unique to you. And importantly, from a previous slide, there are solutions and initiatives that can help you. For those of you who are just starting, the most important thing you can do is adopt these baseline solutions. For those of you who are on board, make sure you're utilizing them to the best of your advantage. As your familiarity grows, you will not only be able to use them more easily, but you also recognize the next set of solutions that might bring benefits to your business. And finally, for those of you who are adopting and maximizing the usage, now is your chance to go overseas. Your past investments in digital give you the opportunity to serve new customers in new markets. With that, I'll end my presentation.
Well, thanks, Robert. I know IMDA has always been a champion and advocate for digitalization. And the journey, I'll confess and I'll share a story, is that I've been with NCB since it was formed in 1981. And it's really, you see the push for digitalization. I think COVID has just helped tremendously and brought it front and center. And with that, I think companies have really realized they've got to change their strategy, and what better way to think about how we should look at things differently than to now ask for Winston to come share his presentation.
Thanks, YIQIYe. If we just queue up the slides. Perfect. Next slide, please. I won't repeat most of what Robert said because I'm in a unique position of agreeing with everything he just said. The reality is that most everyone connected to this conference is aware of some of the driving challenges that SMEs face when it comes to not only finding new customers, but to actually fulfill demand. So, and very much so in terms of getting the right set of financing options to drive growth, as well as meeting that cross-border challenge. But in the theme of today's conference, I thought I would take a moment to focus on this notion of discovery. How do we find customers when the face-to-face option has been fundamentally challenged? And even quite pre-COVID, how does an SME organize their business, their capability set, in order to understand the marketplace beyond their current market? That is actually the challenge that many SMEs find somewhat of a ceiling, and the role of digital platforms and this move to digitization has partially addressed that. So fully embrace the move to digital trading. And even though most of us have interacted, purchased, even returned something on a digital platform, that is still globally high single digits. So most trade today is still very much physical. So as we move to digital platforms, we do believe there's an answer in terms of how to expand an SME's customer catchment. How can they find more customers in a smart way? But if we go all the way back to the challenge of the internet and Google about finding information, the challenge of finding the right customers and making the right matches is what we have been spending some time with government, with private sector, to see if there is a way to accelerate that. We could just go to the next slide. We take the example of one marketplace just to highlight. Next slide, please. We just have used the explosion of digital platforms in the India market there's sometimes a lag. Next slide, please. There we go. We use the India marketplace ecosystem just to make a point about what we are seeing and what each of us are getting pushed to our phones in terms of commerce options. And these options tend to start from a B2C orientation. But as we all know, these B2C platforms are doing a large percentage of B2B business, just by the nature of they are solving this digital delivery of goods and services. But what we also see, and I think many of us have witnessed, is that these platforms create what I tend to call walled gardens, or a set of conventions and protocols that are tremendously helpful, but work if you are a member of that platform. And what we are looking towards is the opportunity that, and sometimes we call it aggregator, we call it a connector. So a platform of platforms that allows and addresses the interoperability, or the ability for a buyer on one platform to interact with a seller on another platform. That is the opportunity and the space, if you will, that we're starting to look at. And what does that imply in a world of data privacy, data standardization, and the ability to enter into some form of, if I could call it, smart contracts, or a platform that allows you to interact with another platform on an agreed basis. So this, to keep it simple, the aggregator or connector role and the opportunity that presents is what we've been looking more and more about, how markets respond and how markets scale. And that is not to discourage, or actually to encourage, the robust activity that's happening at both a local and a cross-border level. But for the SME, the challenge is simple, which is having to supply many different types of products, provide many types of products, and drive a supply chain. It's really hard to operate on multiple platforms. So when I visit with a chief purchasing officer for a $5–10 billion MNC, they will have 8 to 10 different platforms that their team is running. An SME cannot afford to run 8 to 10 different platforms. So hence the importance of cracking this aggregator or connectivity challenge. And that's something that we are looking at quite closely. We just go to the next slide, please. I think Robert again touched upon the impact that COVID has had. And I won't go through each of these point by point, but what I will say is that immediately COVID was about securing vital goods, stockpiling, making sure we had what we need to keep our economy open. But now it's moved to more of the focus on shifting supply chains so there's not a dependency on any one particular geography. That has significant implications for where spend happens. And what we are quite focused on is to make sure that SMEs do not suffer disproportionately as that recoupling happens. And it's happening right now. Hence, we are focused on digitization, as discussed, and looking at technology to try to make sure that the performance and the relative contribution of SMEs are maintained. And of course, that starts with ensuring SMEs can find customers in a virtual world. So in many ways, the BSB initiative, which was part of the front piece, becomes more and more relevant as we move forward in order to address the question of SMEs and how do they find customers. I'll go to the last slide. Next slide, please. which is a little bit of a geopolitical and macro look at the role that the public sector should play and the attractiveness of that to address some of these shifts that we're seeing. And I'm suspecting we might come back to this in the discussion, but it's no surprise that the shift in supply chains has political implications. And those shifts that were occurring pre-COVID could have impacted the role of a hub of physical trade that Singapore played. So the opportunity here is to cement a role as a key driver of trade flows from a digital trade perspective. And that would address this shift towards diversification of trade flows so that we're not having to rely on one particular manufacturing or destination port. And we can talk more and more about that, but Singapore, with its role in international bodies, with its rule of law, stands to play an outsized role beyond that of its actual SME base because of the role it can play in convening what we believe to be the future of open, interoperable platforms. And that's something that I look forward to chatting about in the open Q&A, but I'll probably pause there, YIQIYe, and pass it back to you.
Oh, that's a nice way to kind of end your presentation. Open, interoperable platforms. I mean, well, you talked about the sense of urgency and of people needing to embrace digital. I think you highlighted the degree of complexity that's really in there and that still needs to be solved. I think that's important. And maybe someone who's kind of solved it or is trying to solve it will be Nicholas and his company. So Nicholas, over to you.
Thank you, YIQIYe. So I think today I'm going to be talking more from a platform or marketplace builder's perspective on this topic. So maybe let's just jump straight into the slides. Can we go down to the next slide, please? So you might be wondering, you know, in our company's name, OneConnect Financial Technology, what do we have to do with building SME platforms? 4 years ago in China, OneConnect actually started what we call the YIQIYe platform. Of course, we started with the traditional financial services modules around financing, insurance, as well as payment collections. But we very quickly realized that, you know, helping SMEs more broadly to expand business opportunities and help them digitalize was something that was much more relevant and valuable for the SMEs as well. And that's when we started introducing business management tools. These are things like ERP solutions, accounting software. We even plugged into various government organizations to help SMEs to facilitate their grant application processes, IP application processes digitally. And finally, trade facilitation. So obviously accessing external market demands or getting the ability to purchase goods and services across border from China was something that was highlighted as a strong need. Since running the platform for about 4 years, we've reached out to about 4 million SMEs in China with our ecosystem. So if you go on to the next slide, during our time working with these SMEs, what we actually realized was, you know, there's a demand from the Chinese SMEs for Singapore-based goods and services, and we found particularly in the F&B, industrial equipment, as well as medical devices space, given Singapore's reputation in the world, as well as, you know, the regulatory measures that we take. This gives us a very strong demand from the China SMEs to purchase these goods from Singapore. In line with that, with the support of various government agencies and partners such as IMDA, we are launching what we call the One SME platform in Singapore, exactly to try to help Singapore SMEs broaden their market penetration into China, help them access the China market. We are also helping the Chinese buyers access the Singapore market and facilitate that level of business matching. So as part of this platform, and I won't go into too much detail here, given the time that we have, But we're really trying to solve three key challenges that were highlighted for cross-border trades. So the first is an accessibility problem. I think Winston mentioned, showed the slide about a lack of, platforms that both address a cross-border setup as well as serve as a B2B aggregation portal. This is exactly what we are trying to become and what we're trying to build. We want to be able to aggregate products and services from the SMEs within Singapore and the broader ASEAN region and display all of that to Chinese SMEs to be able to build awareness for products, give everyone a one-stop portal that cuts across different country borders to be able to help SMEs access different markets much more quickly. The second challenge that we're trying to solve is a reliability issue. And I think one of the key considerations from SMEs is really, identification of trusted suppliers, making sure that, the companies that they are working with are trustworthy, that the products that are being sold are indeed certified in the way that they are said to be certified. We understand that trust is a deep topic and a tricky topic and requires time and effort to build across businesses. But as a platform, what we want is really to try to build a baseline level of trust to drive those initial transactions and trade activities to happen. And we do this through a variety of know your business functionalities, doing various verification checks, as well as validation checks, working with different agencies on certifications, as well as the operational health of the companies on the platform. The last is about relevance, and I think there was some points discussed earlier about data. And so, as we aggregate suppliers, as we aggregate platforms onto an open marketplace, the need for the marketplace to be relevant for both buyers and sellers becomes bigger and bigger. What we need to do is to use data to highlight and showcase the most relevant products and services to the buyers so they don't get overwhelmed by the sheer quantity that's available on the platform, as well as leveraging some of the data that we are collecting to provide feedback for the sellers on this platform to make their product offering and pricing more relevant. So looking at things like, what buyers are most searching for, what kind of price points do they have in mind for bulk purchases of goods, for example. So I'll move on to the next slide. In the process of solving these sort of three main challenges, I think I just want to touch on three core principles that guide our platform as well. The first is around connectivity and openness, and I think you'll hear that quite a bit within the panel today. Studies have shown that successful digital ecosystems, digital platforms have on average of about 40 different partners that work with them. And it is our goal to get there and to really form that level or that quantity of partnerships to make our ecosystem as robust as possible. In order to do this, we really need to have an open network. We don't want to close ourselves into exclusive contracts. We want to be able to juggle different objectives from our different partners and build kind of win-win propositions for them. The second is around customer centricity, and what we mean by this is really SME centricity. Building just a simple marketplace platform, we think is not enough really to help SMEs unlock the most value from this. Just because we build it doesn't mean that all the SMEs will come. For an SME that is used to selling within the domestic market today, accessing cross-border opportunities is not just a marketplace or not just something a marketplace can solve. There are other considerations which we are trying to help SMEs overcome, everything from marketing, so giving training in terms of new marketing channels like live streaming, which are much more popular with buyers in China, right? Giving them access to fulfillment services, which can give advice on import-export requirements, documentation, certification that's required to export their goods outside of Singapore, providing financing services, working with banks to enable more funds to flow into these SMEs to address larger volume orders that can come in through the marketplace, And finally, digital tools, which help the SMEs become more agile, help them enhance their back-end processes to handle some of these surge in demand and orders from overseas. So I think this ties in a little bit with what Robert was saying earlier about end-to-end digital as well as agility for businesses being very important. And the last thing just to highlight really is having a long-term focus. I think we're not in this for the short term, and a short-term focus for a platform just doesn't really work. I think generally for businesses, yes, there is a talk about building a scale business and really dominating the market. For a platform, I think we really need to have a long-term view and continually enhance the features and functionalities on our platform to really address the needs and the market situation being faced by the SMEs over time. So today it is helping to resolve issues that crop up during the COVID pandemic, helping SMEs access new digital market demands. It could be a completely different challenge that crops up in the next year, 2, 3, 5 years time. And as a platform ourselves, we need to remain agile. We need to find the right set of partners to be able to then help address the ongoing challenges that the SMEs would face. So just as a very quick introduction and a very quick background of our thinking, that really summarizes where we're at the moment. So I'll pass it back on to Ken Y to take the session further. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Nicholas. Thanks for sharing how to, and the efforts of what you're doing to make it real and make it easy. I think it's very easy to say, go digitalize, go find new customers, go find new connections. But the values of trust and how to get relationships built up is important, and how your organization is trying to help that. That's great. Thanks for sharing. So now we go to the final speaker, Charlie. Charlie will talk about, from his perspective as the company right at the front and center, old family business sort of, and how he's transforming and really to cope with this new environment, this new normal. So over to you, Charlie.
Thank you. Let's wait for the first slide to come up. Yep. So next slide, please. I'll try to run this through as quickly as I can. So that we have more time for Q&A. But basically, for I think most of the previous speakers have already touched on what we've gone through. So what I'll do is I'll share with you our journey, in particularly on how we today acquire customers. Right? So in our customer acquisition thinking, we focus on 3 aspects in how we bring our business forward. The first is our operational capability and the capacity. So for operational capability and capacity, the focus is for us is first know what we can do. There's a difference between providing a service, providing a product, and providing a solution. So you need to, in our opinion, we took a step back and we focused on what kind of a company are we? Are we a product supplier, a service provider, or are we a solutions-based company? And 6-7 years ago, we decided to bring the business forward by focusing on service provision, solutions provision. Next is, of course, the business development methodology. So we focus on how we bring the solution to the customers. Our customer onboarding process or acquisition process is quite lengthy. So we focus a lot on understanding the customer's needs and requirements, and we address the needs and requirements. The focus is on building stickiness to be a partner of the customer, to be part of their business. I always tell my people, right, treat our customers' business as if it's ours, and that can build some form of stickiness and longevity in that partnership. And the last part, of course, is risk management. Risk management is becoming more and more, and today, in today's COVID environment, has become even more important in how we mitigate risk, both locally and through cross-border trading. The challenge with COVID today is a lot of the new customers that we are meeting up with, it's kind of faceless. We do Zoom, right? But it's still faceless. You don't meet the customers on their home turf. You don't bring them to your home turf. So a lot of the risk management evaluation tools becomes, when it comes to face-to-face interaction, becomes diluted. Yeah. Next slide, please. Okay, so for us, we take a little step back. I think most of the speakers has correctly put forward the ecosystem concept as the way forward, and that's what we at SCJ in our journey we also focused on a lot, which is ecosystem based concepts. So in our ecosystem we have our vendor collaboration models, we have our existing customers, and we have channel partners and our industry partners. So for vendors collaboration, we generally try to cultivate a stakeholder relationship. So we are not shareholders in each other's business, but if you are stakeholders in each other's business, you tend to build stronger partnership. We take this reference from marriages, you know. So we've got some channel partners that's been with us for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. You build it's like a marriage, you know. You enjoy the good times together, you go through the tough times together. But without this, if you have you don't have this very strong stakeholder relationship, then the partnership becomes very much based on bottom line and short-term views. So SCJ focuses a lot on the medium to long-term relationship between us and our customers, and our vendors and our suppliers. Then of course there's the solutions development for ecosystems, and that's where Nicholas comes in, right? So today we are starting to see more and more solutions provider. Currently we work with this company called YIQIYe. So they have Easy Procure and Easy Payment. So Easy Procure helps us with how we trade, how we communicate digitally with the customer, and Easy Payment helps take away our credit risk through the banks, right? So that is what I think they call, right? I'm interested to, of course, interact more with some of my panelists also to understand more about like Nicholas' business, and what Robert has brought up was quite interesting, because for the past 6-7 months we've been working, actually right before COVID, we started working a lot more with IMDA on some of the cross-border initiatives and e-invoicing initiatives, and I think the government has taken a good step forward in helping this ecosystem by itself, right? Channel partners, so it's about leveraging on strengths and weaknesses, so efficiency gains and wider coverage, right? So we have a group of suppliers or channel partners within the same industry, each strong in their own domain. We kind of form like a pack. So in our little ecosystem, we have a sauce manufacturer, for example, then we have our other processes, and we go out and we help each other increase the coverage of our solutions. At the same time, we bring in new customers to each other's customers. So within the ecosystem, like my ecosystem, I might have 3,000 customers, and another supplier might have 6,000 customers. We might have some, they are shared customers, but at the same time, we are actually increasing the pie of that ecosystem. And then we have the existing customers. So existing customers, we focus a lot on building a relationship together with them, fulfilling their requirements, and over time we start to realize that they bring in other referrals or other customers in because we've been able to give them a solution, and also through increasing the pie. So we might start a business customer with just supplying meat, and then after that we go on to supply them vegetables and warehousing solutions and stuff like that. And of course, lateral movement of staff within the industry, when they move around, they do tend to bring new businesses back to us. Next slide, please. So parting thoughts on this whole COVID situation with digitization, cross-border trade and local trade. I think most importantly is mindset change. Our biggest challenge through the years is always mindset change of our own people, our own management, of our partners. So I think every business owner or business executives or professionals who's running their business today, first thing is we need to change our mindset. As long as we don't change our mindset, then whatever the government tries to do, whatever solutions provider try to introduce to us, we can't adopt it. And if you adopt it, it's always a half-baked effort, and then the execution might not be 100% as ideal as it could be. Next is adaptation. I think everyone shares the same common thoughts. Adapt. How quickly we adapt in this COVID is how well we survive, and then keep adapting, keep moving towards business excellence in the medium to long run. COVID is just a start. It's a jump start, right? I saw digitization advancement in these 6 months, at a much greater speed than what we've been done for the past 10 years. So it's a catalyst, so let's not stop there. Yeah, and then also, so I strongly encourage everyone to go and find and build your own ecosystems, and that would, I think, help us everyone in the longer run. Okay, that's it for my part, and then we can maybe move back to KY.
Yeah, thanks, Alice. Thanks for sharing about the ecosystems. I really like your comment about the partners and relationships, and it's like a marriage. But I wouldn't put you in a spot and ask you who's first wife. But anyway, I guess also with COVID, you can see that it's really about the advancement of digitalization, as you put it, the rapid thing. And in this panel, one of the focus of this panel is about strengthening resilience and finding new customers in this new normal. So I would like to just follow up with you, and when you think about the new normal ahead of you, with brought about by greater connectivity within ecosystems, reaching out to more consumers directly, maybe you have to. How do you put the balance and how between the old and the new? How much emphasis would you put there? And
I think both are as important. But if I have to take a choice, I'll focus on my old first. The foundations is always the most important. So the old customers are those who brought me to where I am today. And then the old and the new customers will bring me to where I am tomorrow. But of course, for me, the focus will still be meeting the expectation of our old customers.
okay. Yeah. Robert, do you agree?
I think firstly, I wanted to answer your question on marriage. I think we're all married to our computers right now. I think the balance has to be struck, and I like the term that Charlie used about being part of his customer's business. And I think for the existing customers, obviously you are already part of their business. You obviously want to retain that. But as you become part of new customers' businesses, and as you are further integrated into them, the complexity of maintaining an old customer may start to become a drag on resources. So I think we've spoken to other panelists in other sessions before who say that over time, the frictions that my old customers give me may actually warrant me to slowly move towards my less friction new customers who I'm also part of their business. And I think being part of a business and being part of your customer's business is also in turn upgrading them and helping them come into the ecosystem, helping them adopt the solutions that make it easier for you to serve them.
Winston, you have a view?
I wanted to reflect on the extra effort required to court new SMEs. I do believe that because of the level of digitization, new SME customers are harder to attract. But once a business develops those capabilities, I think it would be quite a lucrative opportunity. So we heard even today, in order to develop platforms that are SME centric and SME friendly, you have to do more to help the end-to-end SME delivery chain. So I guess my answer to that is a new SME customer will have a higher cost or even investment in capabilities, but quite lucrative for those who crack it.
Good. So Nicholas, I mean, coming to your platform, that's what you're building for, trying to, really you've got no old customers, right? It's a new platform. So everything is new customers. How easy has the journey been in trying to attract people to come in and see the future versus staying in the past?
No, I think that's an excellent question, and definitely it is a challenge that we're facing, right? And I mentioned earlier, I think it's not a situation where we just build it and then people will come. It's not that kind of a market today. I think there are a lot of the SMEs that we are working with at the moment. These guys are people that have primarily serviced the domestic market. Perhaps their businesses are still trending towards the more traditional side of things. The presence of a cross-border aggregator marketplace platform does not give them the full confidence to want to come on board and then try to tap on this immediately. And this is why we grew the scope of what we wanted to include in this platform beyond just being a marketplace or an aggregator. We needed to roll in all of these other support services, support modules. I like the topic around marketing. So, we go down to the extent of holding live streaming training sessions to educate, the SMEs on this new kind of marketing channel, which they are less familiar with. We bring in hosts from external agencies to help them promote their products initially. We bring in fulfillment partners to help them make the trades. We bring in financing partners to help them unlock the funds to then explore this kind of a business expansion opportunity. So I think, KY, to your point, we want to make this process as seamless as possible from an end-to-end perspective for the SME. And we feel that that is what we need to do as the platform builder to be able to encourage SMEs to be more willing to hop onto our platform. And this inherently is the challenge that we're facing.
Right. And we need to get them on board before they die.
That is correct.
Winston, there's a question from you, from the audience. It's really about this B2B aggregator role and suggesting whether would there be an environment where you see many aggregators, or will the world be dominated by just a few as mergers and acquisitions happen and the big gets bigger?
Fair question. This is really a question of what's the natural end state for this sector. We're in the explosion stage, so there's still a lot of startups or new entrants really into this space. And that will continue for some time despite some of the COVID capital access challenges. What's next? Consolidation is inevitable, and that could be consolidation driven by lack of access to further capital to feed the next round, or it could be the market responding to successful models and saying this is a model that we believe will work from a penetration and network effect. I think the core question of whether it's a large 1, 2, or X number of players versus a meta hub actually comes down to giving, especially the SME sectors, choice. Because what we see in B2C, and it's playing out now on a global and political scale, is there's very little choice when it comes to a small retailer and how they're going to get their offering to market. And then as they then become part of this decacorn or global leading monolith platform, they are facing certain challenges as far as where their data ends up or their ability to extract a fair margin. So it comes down to a little bit of a public policy as well as market option. And we fundamentally believe that technology is challenging that model in many different areas, allowing more of a distributed model to be successful. So KY, I think we will see if how that plays out in the SME platform space, but technology combined with public policy is what I would say means that a meta hub or a network of mid-sized players could be not only a competitive alternative to a large player, but it might be a dominant model if you can balance those incentives for growth. It's ultimately comes down to who can grow a self-sustaining network faster.
And have a nice business model, because what wants to appear with the power of your scale is what you charge and what you skim off, right?
Who can scale faster and therefore build, and that's the whole network effect. And right now, we know in the B2C space that has been some monoliths that are actually winning in that space. we believe another model is possible.
Robert, would government step in with fair competition?
Oh, wow, that's a difficult question. I'm going to skirt it by actually saying that what you really have, and what I think is the idea that there's a one-size-fit-all and that there will be no change is clearly a dangerous idea. I mean, we've got 4 different panelists here with 4 different views connected by technology. And that's essentially what we're going to have. We're going to have different solutions for different groups of users that ultimately are connected by technology. Winston, I quote back to what Winston said when he was talking earlier, that really we've only seen 1% of the trade actually being in this space. And already we're talking about monoliths and a single homogeneous solution. I personally think that will be challenging. The political side of this is also going to become evident. I mean, when we had the pre-discussion, there was the prickly subject of taxation in this space, but I think there will be a political element to this. I don't think it is, as we've seen the political element coming into B2C space, data privacy, issues to do with sovereignty. I think there will be political elements, but I still believe that there will be change. So today's giants may not be tomorrow's giants. I don't think it's an insurmountable lead. We look at the technology partners, the technology players, many of them weren't here. Many technology players from the past have fallen by the wayside. So there will constantly be change. I think it then comes back to what was said by Charlie at the end of it. For our businesses to really survive or thrive in this space, it really is a mindset. It's a mindset shift to recognizing that there will be change. It's a mindset shift to embracing that change and making the most of it. And I think COVID has been the wake-up call, and the biggest waste will be that despite all the difficulties and troubles and tribulations that we've gone through, the mindset still remains fixed in the traditional approaches. So I think the mindset change will be the one that changes. And I think in terms of the landscape, it will change. And I think it will change whether it becomes bespoke for particular services being rendered to particular groups. I believe that will happen for certain sectors. But ultimately, you're going to have 4 different people who all need to be connected, and that will still be built on the backbone of technology.
Good. And that's a nice segue back to Charlie, because there's a couple of questions for him. One is, in the world of digitalization and open markets, how do you retain your old customers and build relationships when loyalty is no longer a given thing?
Existing customers, again, it's about, I'm going to take back again to the concept of marriage, right? So, so so in a marriage, in a marriage, there's this thing called dependencies. So there's interdependencies, there's dependencies, and then there's independent. So if you have a relationship with a customer that's truly 100% dependent, that's actually quite toxic. And that's what Robert correctly pointed out. Some customers are really difficult and expensive to maintain. And the effort, the resources, heavy, because the relationship has become very dependent and very, very toxic. And then you have customers who are truly independent. Those independent customers, we call fly by night, wherever the wind blows, they follow. 5 cents difference, they move, So what we try to do is we try to build interdependencies where we need them, they need us for various reasons. And if you build that relationship around that, then yeah, the older customers tend to be a bit more sticky. Yes, there will be I might be the first wife, there might be new partners through the open markets, right? But then I think Nicholas was one to point out the issue of reliance. So a lot of customers, being in food, is a bit different from some of the other trade. In food, the food safety aspect, the quality assurance aspect, reliability, supply resilience, price resilience, all comes into factors. So generally, we do have, the moment we build some level of stickiness, there will be a consideration when it comes to whenever there's someone who's trying to lowball our pricing, right? And then there's some premium to that, or there's some buffer to that. So yeah, so I would say, again, know your business well, find out where your strengths are, focus on building that strength, and then bringing up your weaknesses. Understand your weaknesses and try to find ways to overcome your weaknesses. And that way, you generally tend to have a better security, better relationship with your customers.
And Charlie, a couple of follow-on questions is, just now you mentioned about the platform used to connect with the customers as well as payment. I think one of the questions is, who are they? Could you just give a shout out for them?
So yeah, the company's names is SGEBIS. Their solutions easy procure. I believe Nicholas is also is building something similar. So I think not all, but a few of the new platforms, basically for us, we have a checklist, right? And then we have a wish list. So for me, when I met SGEBIS, they fulfill all my checklists, and they are moving forward in their future plans. They had all my wish list on, and that was a no-brainer for us. So yeah, SGEBIS, yeah.
And the payment company?
Same. So SGEBIS has two solutions, sorry. Yeah.
Okay. All right, good. There's a question in regards to international trades, how do companies comply to various privacy laws? I guess they're concerned about GDPR in Europe, and I guess in APAC, they're pushing CBPR. Maybe Winston, could you help with that question?
Sure. Well, not the data expert amongst us, I think the challenge of building cross-border platforms is that you need to pay attention to these items, as you can be connecting with the press of a button, a buyer and seller in different jurisdictions. So I think, YIQIYe, what I would say is we are working through, so quite past the design and strategy stage into the operational stage of this BSB concept through the working group Proxtera. And we are dealing with how do you manage the obligations of where the data is stored, and how can you allow the transfer of information so that these participants can judge reliability, so that they can judge transactional volumes without violating any of the PII or GDPR. And I can say that, you know, we're getting around it in a very prudent and compliant way with anonymization of what data you share, etc. But these are all of the complexities, because our goal is to take those complexities away from the SME to allow them to just run their business. And if we can pre-wire it so that they don't have to think about GDPR, and they can easily choose a supplier from Jurong or Johannesburg, that is the ideal. And once we have cracked that, I must just say one thing, which is off topic, which is Robert cited 1%. I said single digit, Robert.
No, I said single digit, not 1%. Sorry.
Right. And it goes to the first digit too is 100% growth.
Yes.
And maybe I'll also give a shout out for IMDA. IMDA is doing a lot of work with data privacy. Singapore companies can look forward to data trust mark certification. And interestingly, there's a seminar this afternoon that talks about CBPR, cross-border privacy rules. I'm not sure how many people understand that. That's the APAC equivalent. Robert, you want to say anything about data here? So
firstly, I think the group that we have on this call, in this conference right now, we're looking at B2B. So firstly, there should be a distinction drawn between B2B data and B2C data. Most of the focus has always been about the consumer side and the collection and use of that data. Sure. I think in the business data, the rules are still slightly different. There's a recognition, especially in a cross-border environment, that if you want to be able to purchase cross-border between businesses, there has to be a certain amount of data that can flow. Minimally, if you want to trust a business on the other side, you need to know certain things about that business in order for you to be able to facilitate an activity with that business. Where the lines get a little bit blurred is as you go further down towards the SMEs, the persona of the business and the individual start to merge. And I think that will be where the challenges are in terms of data privacy in this area. When it comes to anonymization, I think there's a lot that can be done. I think a lot of the data principles are still around consent. If you give consent for the information to flow, then obviously the data can move, subject to any other restrictions. But firstly, I think what Winston and what Nicholas are trying to do is really show the opportunity and the ability to discover the opportunity, and then follow forward by how the data would then back that up. I think the reverse is where you run into the risks, which is when the data is mined and then the information is pushed. And I think, again, that's very much in the consumer space.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to chime in and echo a bit what Winston and Robert are saying. So, you know, from the data point of view for our platform, definitely what we want to do is take away those headaches from the SME. Again, as a platform operator, I think that's really our role here, to decomplexify all of these matters. And you know, in the process of building and operationalizing this platform, we have been and will be very prudent in terms of data privacy as well as cross-border data sharing, particularly given that we are an aggregator and we are, you know, passing data from not just different countries, but from different players within the ecosystem. And, you know, we've engaged sort of at a global level, you know, privacy specialist law firms to basically advise on some of these topics. I think it's increasingly important, and you know, I think, you know, at the platform level, we are all very well aware of these issues, and we'll try our best to protect SMEs from them.
Okay, we're now down to the almost 5-minute warning. I think we have a very nice closing question. Are there any pitfalls to think about as we rush towards digitalization, trying to run faster than other countries or other partners? And maybe we just take a couple of minutes or a minute each from the panelists to give me your perspective. Is Singapore running too fast or too slow, or should we do something differently? So Robert, start with you.
Well, again, a difficult question. I think all your eggs in one basket, I think is at the end of the day, the balanced approach. I again refer to what Charlie said. You've got your existing business base, you've got your existing business customers. You don't pivot an entire business overnight and embrace something, because you never know how that is going to change. I think the lack of movement is the bigger risk. I've yet to see companies have adopted digital solutions that haven't worked for them. There are many reasons. They may not be the right solution. They may not have had the right internal commitment to those solutions, or that solution may have overpromised. But that shouldn't stop you from doing the next one or trying the next one. I mean, we've all made bad purchases. We've all made bad investments. We've all made wrong decisions. But I think the clear demarcation is that if you are not making digital decisions moving forward, then you're really in the wrong space. Whether you can move too fast, I think, again, it's a risk appetite. It's how your business is set up. You can clearly move fast, but if people move fast, they need to be able to change direction quickly. And I think so agility comes back down to it. So if you are an organization which can't be agile, then moving fast is obviously may not be the right speed for you.
Okay. Winston?
On the question of, and I'm recalling whether it was the speed of change or lessons learned, but I think the way I would pick up the answer, YIQIYe, is I'll go back to this notion that digital trade is less than 10% of total trade, but it's the fastest growing segment. So I don't think it's a question anymore of whether you should be involved, but how to be involved from the standpoint of future-proofing your business, and from the standpoint of all of the various ecosystem players that we've assembled and we've been talking to today and talking about. I believe the SME segment has specialized needs that I think we need to address, that it sits above an individual and below an MNC. And I think that is the opportunity that you can see in this panel right now. We're starting to customize the solution to this segment, and I think that's exciting.
Good. Nicholas?
Yeah, so 2 points from me. So I think the first is, you know, due consideration should be taken before embarking on this digitalization journey for the company. I think, you know, it's not just to digitalize for the sake of doing so. And I think that the various sort of costs and benefits need to be properly strategized and mapped out. It's a journey, right? It's not a big bang, I'm going to move from a traditional business to a digital business tomorrow. So I think that's more for SMEs themselves to have due consideration. I think the second point is talking about digitalizing faster than some of our global partners. Again, from a platform and a connectivity perspective, I think it's also about identifying where the right opportunities are at the right time. There may be certain countries where there isn't yet a critical mass of businesses that have gone digital in that way that we can connect up to. And it could be then, prioritizing them at a later phase in the roadmap to bring on board, right? We started looking at China because obviously they are a little bit further ahead of the game in some sense. And we have a critical mass there that we can plug into immediately. And so these are some of the considerations that we are taking, at least to try to grow in a sustainable and logical manner.
Okay, thanks, Nicholas. And finally, Charlie, closing comments?
I think there's no silver bullet, there's no such thing as what's the right pace, what's the right approach, what are the pitfalls. What the pitfalls I face might not be the same pitfalls you face, right? So every company is different. I think most importantly is still, again, back to what I said earlier, the mindset has to be right to embrace the change. And ultimately, it's the appetite for risk. So if it depends on every organization, like an SME like ours, we are a 64-year-old family-run business. Obviously, we've had a long journey, right? And strangely, my two owners, so my company has two owners, and my two owners are still extremely high appetite for risk. So I can't, and we've got channel partners who are really traditional, and they have the sit and wait approach. Let's see what others do, and then we'll typical Singaporean sometimes, right? But as for our government and aspect, I think we need to, personally, I think we need to move fast. How quickly, I'm not the right person to comment, but for at least from our organization, we are trying to move as quickly as we can and stay agile. That's important. Yeah.
Well, good. Thank you, guys. I guess maybe to close this panel with a local word is, this is not the time to be kiasi.
Yeah.
I think there's opportunities with digitalization. I think the world is changing. You got to recognize the change is coming, and the right thing to do is embrace it, right? Try, embrace it, and then there's enough help out there. Robert, IMDA is really out there to I think they're doing a great job, Jane and the team there, to help companies. And then you got not just government doing the right thing, but also businesses helping businesses, so Nicholas's. And then you've got the wise Charlie there to help if you want to go additional advice. So thank you, everybody. Thank you.